All right, everybody. So, different episode of Psykos Platters today. All right? Different episode. I've had several people, offline, online, have gone off, and they have asked me, Mighty Psycho, we know you like music, but what else do you happen to like that you want to talk about? And you know what, for those people, and even the ones that didn't ask, I got something for you. Because, that's right, Paul here, Mighty Psycho, is, and probably always will be, till the day I die, a wrestling fan. Yes, I love wrestling. TV wrestling, etc., etc., etc. And I am going to share some wrestling stories with you guys, going back to the early 90s, actually, and a little bit into the 80s, too. So, I'm going to go off and simply say, let's get ready to reminisce. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. Time to reminisce. Remember this theme? That's right. It is time to... I know. I love cheating like this. It is cheesy wrestling stories with the Mighty Psycho. So, let me tell you something. Or should I say, let me tell you something, brother. Okay, so, like I said, if you're expecting music, I will totally understand if you just blow off this episode, but I'm going to try to make it interesting for you, okay? That's what I'm going to try to do around here. So, I got turned on to wrestling actually in the early 1980s. We had some, I'm from Chicagoland, like I have said before, but I remember we started getting cable in the summer of 80, okay, over in our house. So, I mean, I do remember seeing, I do remember WWF, okay, sort of in that time frame, 82, 83, I think. NWA, no, not the band, but NWA, which would turn into WCW. I want to say one of the channels had I want to say UHF, that's not right, UWF, Bill Watts' organization out of Oklahoma. I remember starting to see some of this stuff, okay, and the personalities just grabbed hold of me as a teenager, okay? So I was an early teen getting into this stuff. I always wanted to go, and I'll tell you, and you're going to roll your eyes, but if it wasn't for this man, if it wasn't for him, the Hulkster, let me tell you something, brother, that wrestling, or should we say sports entertainment, would not be as big as it's been for the last 30 years, almost. Or more, excuse me. So, like I said, I watched all this stuff, and I had some of my favorites, okay? I liked Hulk Hogan for a while, but it got old. It got old after a couple of years. I was more of a Randy Macho Man Savage. You see, 'cause he'd always go out there with Miss Elizabeth. Yeah. And make it all crystal clear. Yeah, brother. Snap into a Slim Jim. Yeah, so... but I did respect the old school wrestlers, too. So... in the, WWF had come to Chicago. I couldn't afford it. I just couldn't afford it at the time. And life kind of got in the way and such. I remember that in the 90s, like late 80s, early 90s, I still was within Chicagoland, but I moved and there was a different cable system. So I got to see, like I said, WWF, WCW. Sports Channel would have, from Mexico, Lucha Libre Wrestling. The High Flyers, the Luchadors. That got me turned on even more crazier because I'm like going, oh my God, you know. And let me explain now, before I even get into any more of this. Wrestling is not fake. Look what happened to John Stossel and all the other ones that attempted to say that. It's not fake. What it is it is athleticism and sportsmanship with a predetermined outcome. It's a predetermined outcome. It's not fake. I've seen the injuries. I've seen pictures of injuries. I have seen career-ending injuries. Let's face it, guys. Rest in peace, Owen Hart. That hurt. I never saw footage. What was it? There's a secondary cam footage, supposedly. Like, you know how they would do close-ups and pan-outs? Supposedly I saw, and I'm sorry, I wish I knew the YouTube channel to tell you that. I saw a pan-back shot of what happened with Owen. And I don't think it was on there very long. And I'm just like, oh my God, I wouldn't want to see the close-up. That's just, but I've seen pictures, still photos of the paramedics in the ring after it happened. Okay, just lots of controversy for that. Other bits of controversy, like for WWF, the Ring Boy scandal. If you don't know what that is, look that up on YouTube. Involved certain wrestlers. One that just recently died, actually, in the last month. So there's always been controversy. Some of the most, or should I say, great times for televised wrestling was the WWF, WCW Monday Night Wars. I was one of those ones with the remote control, back, forth, back, forth, back, forth. So in the early 90s, where I lived in McHenry County, Illinois, okay? So there was a Chicagoland wrestling organization called WCW. Now I know you're like, well, wait a minute. Windy City Wrestling, okay? Windy City Wrestling would go off and go in, obviously in Chicago and all around up to where I lived in northern Illinois. And and they used to have boxing style posters, if you know what I'm talking about. I have pictures and signed stuff I'm going to show you, but what I really regret is not having any of those damn posters. Oh man, the autographs that I got on those posters. Unfortunately, what happened with those posters was there was a leaky roof. I didn't know that. It was a storage facility. It all turned into mush. Got destroyed. Really pissed me off. I have wrestlers' autographs, some of them that are no longer around, and I really wish that I could have seen that. So Windy City Wrestling. So the first match that I remember going to, I want to say it was like 1990-91, okay? So cheap tickets. And I was spoiled. I had to have in the first 2 rows. And I would take my stepson with me, all right? So me and him, buddy, we would sit there and just love every bit of it. And now, Windy City, they had their people like Frank the Tank Nelson. They had Trevor Murdoch. Oh yeah, by the way, Windy City Wrestling did have a handful of people that came out of there. I said Trevor Murdoch. Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels, he came out of there. Oh God, who else? I remember Texas Hangman, who would briefly go to AWF, which was another faction in the 90s that I think they were out of Minnesota in televised matches, and they ended up there. So you know, you had a bunch of people that came out of there, and there might have been more. I'm just going off the top of my head. I have no script going here, okay? So the first match the matches that I remember going to, and I really liked it. But they would always try to get one big namer or somebody that was known at the time, okay? So the first card that I got to go to, the main attraction was a former WWF wrestler named Nails. Now, I know you're probably going, who the fuck is Nails? Nails didn't last too damn long. I remember actually seeing him on TV, and if I remember correctly, he only pretty much did matches with a couple jobbers, Big Boss Man, and he actually did one against Bret the Hitman Hart, excuse me. But he did not last really long, okay? We used to go after the matches were over because most of the wrestlers were awesome. They'd sign autographs on whatever you had, because we always bought the programs. I may have a program or two. I may show in a later episode. I still am working through boxes. And then, of course, those posters, which were easy to get at the time anyway. And Nails, he was just a rude son of a bitch. Not only was he said no to me and my kid, but he shoved somebody. I don't know who the hell it was, but I thought, like, that's rude. And it looked like the person he shoved was not in on it. Because I know about the plants in the audience and stuff like that, right? I'm like, the guy looked really shocked, the one that got pushed. So I'm just like, well, that's kind of bullshit. So that was the first washed up celebrity I saw. So within a couple months later, they used to do these cards every 3 to 4 months. So I remember the next one that I went to, I saw the poster, and the Bushwhackers were going to be there. Remember Luke and Butch? Won the head and everything? Oh boy, I know, you guys are going to be rolling your eyes. So Bushwhackers were going to show up. I'm like, hell yeah. I said, I remember those guys. Some people go off and say that they were one of the clowns of wrestling. No, that's Doink. But we'll get to Doink in a little bit here, too. So the Bushwhackers, I was all excited to actually see, you know, along with everybody else. But the funny part about it is that, so the Bushwhackers were the card of the night. All right. Several days before the appearance, they got called back to WWF. This happened, I guess, very frequently. I did not know this at that time, between the independents and the major companies. Back and forth, back and forth. And so the Bushwhackers were no longer going to be available. I found this out ahead of time because I knew one of the main wrestlers, Frank the Tank Milson. And he went off, and I remember him telling me, he goes, "You still got your tickets, right?" "Yes." He goes, "Good." He goes, "Because here's what's going to happen." He goes, "I'm going up against the Iron Sheik." I'm like, are you shitting me? The legendary Iron Sheik. Yes. Now this is early 90s, okay? 91, 92, I want to say. And I'm just like, holy crap. And he goes, "But that's not all." He goes, "There's still somebody coming special. We're flying them from Florida." And I'm going, who? He says, "We ain't telling you shit, because so far it's not committed yet. But that's all I can tell you." I'm like, okay. So we didn't know. So go off. We're there. Okay, we're there. I think I got second row that night. Second row. I don't know why I couldn't get front. But I got second row with the kid. And so they go off over the announcement. They're like, "Ladies and gentlemen," so they're like, "Ladies and gentlemen, the Bushwhackers unfortunately will not be able to appear tonight. We're still going to have a good card of wrestling. We have a mystery surprise guest coming. If you want refunds, by the end of the first match, come back and we'll give you your money." Which seemed fair. Only a couple people walked out. Everyone else stayed. So you get through the whole card. You get to the last match. So Frank the Tank and Iron Sheik going at it. Iron Sheik's beating the crap. And there would be updates. They're like, "We just got on the phone. He landed, this, that. About maybe 5-6 minutes into the match, roughly, I want to say, okay? Sheik's going to town on Frank the Tank Nelson. Who's coming back from the back of the house? And this was in a junior college, by the way, all right? Gymnasium. Who's coming from the back with a steel chair, jumps in that damn ring, smacks the Iron Sheik? That's the first time I see him. I go, holy crap, it's Marty Jannetty. Yeah, that's right, Marty Jannetty. Back when he was still halfway okay wrestler, right? With, but after the Rockers with Shawn Michaels, He's whacking the hell out of Sheik, and it just turns into a Donnybrook. It was really crazy. But Marty Jannetty was the surprise guest, so I got to meet Sheik. I got to meet Jannetty, and so Sheik I didn't get to meet that quick, that long for some reason. I got to yap with Jannetty a little bit more. So I keep going to these things, right? So what was it? One of the ones that I went to was Coco Beware. Coco Beware ends up being one of the. It actually was one of the last cards that they did. They had a lot of other wrestlers. I missed a couple good ones, like Junkyard Dog showed up for one or two of the cards over the years. I would have loved to have seen JYD wrestle, but I got to see Coco Beware. And of course, you know, I guess from what I'm led to believe, he either drove from Memphis or he flew in from Memphis. It was one or the other. I'm assuming driving, because I could have sworn I thought I saw him in a car. But so it was him. He brought his merch and his parrot Frankie, if you remember Coco at all. Now, there's the weird story, okay? So my wife at the time delivered my son. If I remember correctly, it was my son John, so it would be 94 for this story. So it was me, David, and my 2-year-old. Now I know you're sitting there going, how are you keeping a 2-year-old kid amused? For some reason it worked. She didn't peep once. So Coco Beware goes off, comes out, and so this is funny. He's doing the Frankie with my daughter. I thought that was hilarious, you know, doing the Frankie. We brought across the street neighbor kid. He was huge into wrestling, huge. We used to alternate getting pay-per-views, and he wanted to get near Frankie's cage, and I'm like, don't do that. Don't do. And you know what? He got bit, and Coco turned around and told him, he told you not to go near the cage. I'm like, that's right. That was his souvenir. He got a bite from Frankie the Cockatoo. Alright, so let me show you some pictures, if you guys can see them. I know, forgive me, some of these are dark photos. In the early 2000s, there was a charity wrestling match for NAWF, which was a league from South Beloit, Wisconsin, for all you cheeseheads that know that up there. Excuse me. So they were putting on a charity thing for I can't remember if it was the Boys and Girls Club, or maybe it was the police and fire department were going to have a special match too. So the card was completely going to be full. There were supposed to be 5 wrestling superstars. Excuse me. So sorry about that. I choke on my own spittle. Alright. So the ones that didn't show, Luna Vachon. She was sick, I'm told, in a motel room in Beloit. So she was going to be in Gangrel's corner. Yeah, Gangrel. You remember Edge Christian Gangrel? Doink was supposed to be there too. Which Doink? I have no damn clue. But he was supposed to be there too. He was a no-show. He didn't bother to show up at all. So the thing is, I already was at another one of their events. And I wore their shirt, the organization shirt. So I brought 2 of my, at that time, fiance's kids. We helped put the chairs up, because we got there way ahead of time. We helped with the chairs, the kids helped move concessions. I even helped for a couple minutes to help bring stuff in, back when I could, to the ring. I got to see how a wrestling ring was made with the plywood and the plywood mat springs, posts and stuff. Heavy stuff. And this ain't no light work. And so I got through all that. Excuse me. Figures. I wasn't coughing all day. So we get done, and we get to interact with the 3 wrestlers that do show up, okay? So here's a picture of me with King Kong Bundy and the 2 kids. King Kong thought I worked for the company. He didn't charge me. He did not charge me for the 8x10. Really nice guy, too. I literally bumped into King Kong Bundy. I was like, uh-oh, excuse me, sir. And I literally like was trying to help him. I go, oh, and I almost like literally ran into him. Here's me and the kids. One of the guys from the fire department that was going to be on the wrestling thing, and Hacksaw Jim Duggan. Yes. This, I'm led to believe, was one of the first matches he came back after having the stomach cancer. And he did have, his stomach was a little distended, but he was in good spirits. Oh, and all that stuff. And that's how I got this. Hacksaw was a really nice dude. And then lastly, me and the kids with Gangrel. Yeah. Even he admitted that night after having that match, he was really, really hurting. And I guess one of his cap teeth popped out during the match. I was like, holy crap, because I could have sworn I saw something fly out of the ring, but we couldn't figure it out. So, you know, we tried helping him find a cap tooth, and believe it or not, he found it, as far as I know. And yeah, he at that time really thought maybe he came back too early because he had a really bad injury for a while. So let's see, another one in between. There was going to be a WWF appearance at the Rockford Metro Center, and there to sign autographs at a furniture store was Lita. If you remember Lita at all, you know, with the Hardy Boys. Okay, right next to Lita is WXRX's jock, Cactus Jack. He was a huge wrestling fan. In fact, sometimes he would wrestle too in the NAWF organization up there. Also, though, I got a picture because I won, this was a different event though for WWF, a pair of tickets, and my friend couldn't come with for some reason. I don't know why. And so we got a special meet and greet before the event, and it was just for like, I think it was like 30, 40 people total. So this was like one of the last ones I went to. Here's me and at that time Intercontinental champ Shelton Benjamin. That's right, Shelton Benjamin. Nice guy, nice guy. So let's see what else. Okay, so then flash forward a couple more years, and I went to another NAWF event. This time it was at a lodge, a lodge right next to the Rockford Speedway. Name's escaping me at the moment, but they used to have bands would come up and coming like, okay, here's the only music reference I'm going to give you right now. If I remember correctly, Mushroomhead and Nonpoint played in this lodge. I don't know why the hell I can't remember the name of it right now. So they had a wrestling card, and they did have a celeb to come there, and the main guy that was holding the belt at the time, his name was Tweet Phoenix, that's right, and people would yell, Tweet, Tweet, Tweet. So they came out at intermission, and I said, Tweet, would you do me a favor? Can I borrow that belt for a second? And here's me with Tweet Phoenix in that hat. And that girl next, I don't know who, I think it was his valet, and I'm just like, I was playing the part for 2 seconds. Those belts are a little heavy, by the way. They are not fake by any means. So also at that, he ended up wrestling in a tag team match. I got to see the American legend Larry Zbyszko. That's right. So there's me and Larry Zbyszko, and he was nice. He was nice. He did the job that day. So, okay. Flash forward to about 2005, I want to say, okay? So Windy City Wrestling was putting on another match. I call this match the match that didn't exist. And the reason why I'm calling it that is because except for, oh man, except for a certain amount of people, no one in the outside world knew that this existed. That was like maybe the last match to ever, to my knowledge, come to Harvard. There might have been one more, actually. I apologize. There is one more. But it took a few years. I want to say it was like 4 or 5 years before they would even attempt to get wrestling back into the venue. So there was supposed to be a Windy City wrestling match at the Stratford, which was a big catering area in Harvard, just slightly off the beaten path. A lot of matches, that's how I met Coco Beware. There was a couple other ones that came through the Stratford. And so when they went off and they said, it's going to be Saturday night, Rikishi's coming. I'm like, Rikishi? Are you shitting me? I said, I didn't hear anything about this. Well, yeah, we should have the sign. It should be in the papers. He goes, you know, just get your tickets. You can get your tickets at the door, or you can whatever. So I cannot remember what I was doing that, because it didn't show up in the paper. There wasn't, because they used to have wrestling on the sign outside the little venue. Nope, nothing. And I'm like, I thought the match wasn't going to happen. So I'm driving back into town after being gone most of the day, and I see this big ass truck with the door swung open into the Stratford, and I see ring equipment coming out of the truck. I'm going, wait a damn minute. So I hurried up in there and I said, what's going on? Well, we're going to have the match. And I'm going, I didn't know if this was happening. It wasn't advertised. He goes, and the guy actually leveled with me. He goes, you know what? He goes, for some reason there was a beef between the local paper and this organization. The dude that did the weekend section refused to put the event in. And then for some reason there was miscommunication for the banquet hall's signage to be put up, because at least that would have mentioned. So barely anyone knew about the damn thing. Now my roommate at the time, she used to be a wrestler in the indie circuit down in Florida. She ended I am so tired today. I really, really am. She briefly dabbled with Adrian Steele and Jim the Anvil Neihart. Okay, that's about what I can tell you. Pam, that's her name. And so I hurried back up. I said, Pam, it's happening. So we hauled ass, got tickets. It ended up being, we were the only ones, me and Pam were the only ones that had nothing to do with the promotion that was there in attendance. There's me and Rikishi. Yes, Rikishi was there. In fact, the story went, because I talked to somebody that worked at the McDonald's there just around the corner. He ordered 20 cheeseburgers. 20, I said. And this was the 8x10 I got from him.